continue on the NPH Hour here on News Talk Saga 960 AM. I'm your host, Jason Thom. A common theme with successful professional athletes is overcoming adversity. First two guests on this show both lost time due to major injuries, and my next guest has had his fair share as well. But every time Dylan Ennis has been forced off the court, something amazing soon followed. Listeners of this radio station may recognize the name Tyler Ennis, which is Dylan's younger brother who played with the Raptors 905 and is currently rehabbing from his second major injury in 2 years. The Ennis family name is well known in the Canadian basketball community, and there is more young talent on the way with that same last name. They have a big basketball-loving family. And with every game played, the international basketball community will want an Ennis representing their team because of the energy that they bring with them. Dylan Ennis, Brampton native, world citizen, spreader of good energy, about to become a father for the second time, and, professional basketball player that just finished up his fourth season overseas. Yeah. Dylan, first thing I want to tackle is the world citizen part. Hard to keep up a little bit. So you're Canadian, much of your early life in Brampton, but you actually played against Canada as a member of the Jamaican basketball team. You hold another passport in Europe. Even your young family is following suit with your wife, daughter, and soon-to-be-born son, all a little bit different. I don't want to mess it up. Can you just take us through everything I just said right there?
Yeah, so, obviously born and raised in Canada, so I have the Canadian citizenship. Always going to be have Canadian blood. But then Team Jamaica reached out to me. Team Canada had their rosters. Team Jamaica reached out to me saying, "Hey, do you want to play?" I said, "Yeah, of course." I wanted to play for Team Canada, but they were stacked at the time. So playing international ball, that was the way I could do it. So I got my Jamaican passport because my family was born and raised in Jamaica. I'm the first generation in Canada. So that's where I get my Jamaican side. I play over here in Europe and I have a Serbian passport. Yeah, crazy story that, my first year I played in Serbia and, here they're allowed to nationalize, guys in special situations. And luckily I was able to, and people who don't know overseas too well, when you're nationalized from a different country in Europe, it's great because you're only allowed a certain amount of Americans on your team. So, getting that Serbian passport, it doesn't put me in the American pool. It puts me in the European pool, which is amazing. And then my wife is from Australia. We met in America, but she has an Australian passport, born and raised. And then we had our first daughter, Maya, in Andorra 2 years ago. And now we're about to have our second child, Chance, in Spain. So, we all have different passports. But we're looking to, try to get, the same passport, this summer, hopefully we could change. We have to change Maya's because, she's not living in Andorra. After a year, you have to pick. Okay. Hopefully we could change hers to Australian this summer. And then Chance, he'll probably get Australian as well so that he doesn't have, a Canadian. Maya has Australian. So, him get Australian passport. And then after a year's time, hopefully we could get him a Spanish passport. Yep. So if he ever plays overseas, he could be in that European pool as well. So, it's really crazy.
If you could look back to your early years, everything you just said there, and we're going to get into the story that got you there, but what would 8-year-old Dylan Ennis think of 29-year-old Dylan and everywhere you've gone and experienced through this game of basketball?
I would always say that, 8-year-old me, as crazy as it sounds, I knew that, I didn't want to live, I wouldn't say a boring life, but, I've always wanted to be the kid to try something new, do new things. So I think the 8-year-old me would say, it's so interesting that, the young me get to live a life like that, when I grew up, because I was never a quiet kid, never a shy kid. And now the life I live now, it's a blessing, but it's definitely lines up to what I always wanted, interesting life.
I mentioned in the opening that you're a spreader of good energy, and your social media channels are not only an amazing glimpse into the life that you live, with your wife and family overseas, but and obviously the personality, but Has it been a focus, especially during this time of a pandemic, to share like laughter through that medium during this time? It really seems like it's been a focus of yours
Yeah.
to try to make things better out there.
Yeah, of course. During quarantine and lockdowns, it's tough when you can't go do the things you love. Whether that's just go to the movies or go to a game. So when we were in our apartment, couldn't leave unless it was an emergency. TikTok found me, and I was like, it's a way where I could still be me, make people laugh, and I didn't have to leave the apartment. And then from there, I just continued to do it because, people loved it. People said, Dylan, you're so funny. I watch your videos, you make me laugh. And, it wasn't just me. I was able to incorporate my family, which is always, number one on my list. But now Amaya is actually the big star. I'm not even the star of my own social medias, but it's me. I love to do it. I used to think that it was hard to, be on social media and still be focused in basketball, but you can do both. And, I think I do a good job at that. If you see me on the court, I'm very serious. I take my craft very seriously, but off the court, I like to decompress, and just be a comedian.
Now, for people listening, especially younger players, I like to go through like tangible examples of challenges resulting into positives. And going back through your career, I mean, it's just time and time again, right?
Mm-hmm.
And your transfer to Villanova, you sit out per rules at the time, you sustain an injury.
Yeah.
So essentially you missed 2 full seasons, but as a junior with Nova, you're a starter on a Big East champion, a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. What lessons did you learn over those 2 years without playing competitive basketball that you were then able to implement? Because I just think there's going to be kids at home that could learn from your exact pathway at that point.
Yeah, I learned a lot about myself. When I faced all my injuries in my life, I always tried to dig deep in me. I'm not saying that I was always positive through the injuries because, you're going to have your time when you have anxiety, you face depression, you feel like, nothing's going to go right. Why me? But I was able to use those experiences to, propel myself in when things are going good. I know, how I felt then. I know, when I got injured, I was down the dumps. So I try to stay positive and look at those times and say, hey, I made it through this and I can make it through anything else. The injuries, I think for an athlete is the toughest times that you face. But when you make it through those and use those as stepping stones to get to where you want to be, it's a great motivational tool.
And then when you go to Oregon, I mean, it's a powerhouse squad, great Canadian pipeline down there. I know Dylan Brooks was there at the time, Chris Boucher as well. He was injured, and obviously a great coaching staff. But then another injury early in what was supposed to be your final season.
Yeah.
What was that like? Because you must have thought your college career was over.
100%. But, looking back on it, I was able to, take a lot from that injury. I found my wife because, I was able to stay another year and, she was there with me rehabbing her torn ACL that she tore twice as well. I was able to, learn more about myself other than basketball. I found more interests that I like. I was able to, find my relationship in God to be a lot stronger, through that injury. And, I think everything just worked out, how it was supposed to. Obviously it came with a bad injury, but, I wouldn't change anything about my story in the past.
6-year collegiate career.
Yeah.
But
I had teammates. Payne Pritchard was my teammate. He was about 6 or 7 years younger than me. It was crazy.
And then your brother Tyler is like on his third NBA team at that point.
When I come here, guys actually think Tyler's older than me because they're like, he left college before you. I was like, so I have to explain the whole thing and then they get it. But yeah, it's crazy.
And so what does that tell you, or what have you learned for a young player out there understanding different pathways, right? And understanding everyone's different, what advice would you give to them about, it's not a clear path, right? Peaks, valleys, and everywhere you go.
I learned, not to compare your journey to everybody else's journey. I had guys when I was still in my 6th year, they were in the NBA and I grew up with them. I played against them. And I'm like, why are they there and I'm here? And then fast forward, not to speak bad about, anybody's careers, but, I see those same guys, not playing basketball anymore, or playing in, fourth or fifth division, in a not so good country. And they're messaging me like, hey, Dylan, you're an inspiration. What do you do? Asking me for advice. And back then I would never think that the tides would change like that, but I stuck with it. I sacrificed, I dedicated myself, I stayed true to myself, and I didn't compare my journey to anybody else's journey. And, I think once I did that and locked into just me and not worry about anybody else, it changed my whole trajectory.
I want to ask you about your teammate, and I believe she's probably there with you right now, a former athlete herself, and your wife, Megan.
Yeah.
How special is it for you, and how much easier does it make it for you that you have somebody who knows how to be a good teammate and knows what you're going through as a player, and to be able to support you in that aspect?
I can't lie to you. Sometimes it's tough because she tells me everything I did bad in the game. Sometimes I have 25 points and I come home and I'll be feeling myself. And she's like, yeah, you could have done this better though. Yeah. But, I love it because, she knows exactly what I'm going through. There was one night where, we just had a Maya and we had a big game. And, I woke up and I looked at her. It was like 7 a.m. I said, what are you doing awake so early? She goes, nah, Dylan, you had a game. I haven't went to sleep yet. And I was like, she understands that. It's not like, she's like, hey, Dylan, could you give me a break? She knows, I have an important game, and she's dedicated to it. She helps me with my diet. She helps me with my nutrition. She knows that, I need the rest. So, having her, be there and knowing the game and, going through this journey with me, it definitely helps me get to where I need to be.
Have you thought about what it would be like to be doing this solo, and how much maybe tougher that would be, and probably just a lot more lonely? Because being in a different country, playing this game and all the pressures that come with it would be very, very tough, especially for somebody like yourself, right?
Yeah, of course. I think the lonely aspect is so big for me. I grew up in a big family. I've always been around people. Being by myself, I think I'd be in my head a lot, Yeah, it's easy to, FaceTime people and text them, but it's not the same, when they don't know what you're going through. So, me being here by myself, it would definitely be tough. I would still dedicate to the game, still know, what I had to do to be where I need to be. But, having somebody there to understand you, to love you, to, vent to, it helps you in so many ways. Mental health is so big now. And, having somebody there to go through the trials, the challenges, but still celebrate the good times as well. It helps you, especially overseas.
Dylan, you've already chosen the name Chance for your yet to be born son, but nothing from your life has come by chance, man. You've worked so hard and you've done things the right way with your faith. And I know you're currently in limbo for next year, but I know it's going to work out, and it's all going to come together like everything else has. And I'll be honest, man, I can't wait to see it. And I know there'll be a ton of people over here cheering you on.
Thank you. Appreciate it, man. I can't wait to see what's next.
So in this episode, I hope you can feel the positivity of these three players through the airwaves and onto the internet. Every one of them faced obstacles that could have felt too much to overcome, and at the time, probably did. But each of them pushed through, and then were hit with another setback beyond their control. But each of them got better as a result. And right now, collectively, our entire Canadian basketball community is dealing with the exact same thing. And players from high school all the way down are also facing what in actuality is their first year-long injury, forcing them away from the game. But what comes after this, from what we heard from people that have lived it, will be better than anything that came before. North Pole Hoops is ready to bring basketball back, and you can stay up to date by following us on Instagram, on northpolehoops.com, and at NPH Scouting on Twitter. All interviews from past episodes can be found on the North Pole Hoops YouTube page and everywhere you listen to podcasts. I'm Jason Thom, and thank you again for listening to the NPH Hour here on News Talk Saga 960 AM.